And welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Martin Folse, and of course, tomorrow night we're going to be up here giving you local election coverage, and certainly the big election, the presidential election that's going to take place that will affect all of us on a national level. So HTV and its local end will be up here giving you updates and focusing on some of the local races. However, we're going to switch gears right now because on the set is State Representative Joe Harrison, and he's involved in two issues. We're gonna talk two issues with him tonight, and not to confuse you, the viewers. One of them deals directly with the sinkhole, which he's been involved in so many fashions in Assumption Parish, and then the other one, you heard about the recent decision not to include him on the appropriations committee. There's a lot of politics behind the politics, and Joe, in his own words, will tell you exactly his side of that story and what took place. But we're going to separate those two as not to confuse you in the public about what is going on. So, Joe, first of all, thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Martin. I welcome the opportunity to try to clear up some of the subjects I think we're dealing with tonight.
Okay, let's first start with the sinkhole. And, of course, we're going to have more on this, and I know that the parish president, Marty, Trish, and others want to come on Bayou Time, and I know they had a previous engagement tonight to be here, but we're going to, of course, as this story develops and continues, we're going to probably stay on this quite a bit until we have some resolve. But I want you to just maybe re-educate the public on what took place and then fill in the gaps. And I guess the most important question to lead off with tonight, just to get the ball rolling, has this sinkhole become bigger?
Yes, it absolutely has. I mean, and just to preface all this with the fact that I did speak to our parish president, Marty Trish, and told him that we had a meeting talking about this with DEQ and DNR, and that we wanted to get some things straightened out. The meeting now has been placed on the 25th of November. It was supposed to be November 9th. That was this Friday. So I got to get the word out to the residents that they have canceled that meeting. This is too important an issue, especially for those people, and they're the ones that are directly affected by this. You have over 150 homes and families that are affected by this. The unknown is the biggest fear that they have. And that's really the only reason why I got involved in this. The other state representative from that area is actively working in it, but we need help from not just the local, not just the state, but the federal government. We've reached out to Senator Landrieu, Senator Vitter, and our whole congressional delegation in trying to declare this a disaster and trying to get the so needed help from the federal level, because right now we don't know who's at fault, and they're still pointing fingers at each other, which we anticipated that was going to happen from the beginning. And I don't want to be judgmental at this point in time. I don't intend on doing that. But I do want to give the people of Bayou Corne the opportunity to voice their opinion, to ask the questions, and try to get a sense from their point of view exactly what is going on and where they stand. And that's what we got to do very soon.
And I was reading in the Morning Advocate as we look at shots of the sinkhole, and of course, it looks small by comparison when you're in a helicopter, but when you get on the ground, it's much bigger than it appears. Everything always is bigger when you're on the ground. But the point, and you can see on the outskirts of it, the cypress trees that continue to die before they're actually, I guess, consumed by the sinkhole. But in fairness, I guess, Joe, if we're going to really be the watchful eye for the consumers and also for the landowners and homeowners in Bayou Corne and anywhere else in Louisiana where people choose to build and then find out where either neglect or a natural disaster or whatever ends up being the case in this deal. I was reading in the Advocate, and just a lot of people, first of all, and rightly so, concerned about their appraisals of their home. Even if these people wanted to move, and there's some families that are split on whether to stay or move, they couldn't sell their home. They couldn't give away those homes right now.
No, and you know what compounds the problem here is that in 2003, just a couple miles up the road north of there, we had the Dow Chemical incident, which at that point in time was very serious. But Dow Chemical made the effort to reach out to those families, bought their homes, and it's been settled out. Although they have one or two people that are still in a situation where they haven't settled with them yet. But you compound the problem that we have today with what happened just in 2003. And for someone to think that they're going to be able to sell that home without all of those things coming into play, because now with disclosure, the real estate people have to disclose all of those issues. And unfortunately, we don't know what's under us. And that's one of the things I hope that we'll deal with in this next session. We're going to talk about caverns. We're going to talk about the pipelines and the other things, and try to give people a sense of awareness of what they live by, give them that heads up on knowing exactly what they can or can't do, and know what they're building. This is a major investment for a family to buy a home. And to find out that that home is not of the value that they're paying on and may have mortgages for the next 30 years, it's a scary proposition. It's one that I hope that we can help them with.
The other issue is that if their home would be swallowed up by a sinkhole, does the insurance cover it? I know I've never seen in my policy I'm covered by a sinkhole. So another question.
That's where I think we're going to get into the blame game, unfortunately. And who are the victims? They're the homeowners. No one wants to pay for something that they believe is not their responsibility. And we're going to have a number of law firms involved in this, as we already have, but it's just going to get bigger and bigger, because when you're talking about the amount of money that could potentially be involved here, it's tremendous. And it's one that the victims, again, and they're the people I'm worried about. I'm not worried about anybody but the people who have to live there, the well-being of them, sleeping in a home, not knowing whether something's going to happen, and then being displaced for the period of time that they've been displaced. That's serious. That's something we're supposed to do. That's what government is supposed to do. I don't believe in government as most people, on the other side of the fence sometimes, that we should do all things. Our main position is to protect the well-being of the people we serve. That's it.
Now, it's hard to, when you sit in a community like Assumption and all the neighboring parishes that benefit from these caverns and benefit from the process and the industry that it creates, the tax basis in Assumption Parish and in other parishes. The problem is this, though, and this has opened up a lot of insight in this, because I was talking to Wayne Blanchard this morning by phone, and he made a good point. He said, Martin, before we never really surveyed this land because it was always in the lock and key. He said, so we always sent out forms where, you sort of put these companies, and really it's hard to say each company, because one person may own the land, somebody else leases the cavern, and then there's a pipeline company that transports. So you may have three different people involved in the process. But he won't know till next year if was any hedging on their responsibility for taxes or whatever. He told me this morning he doesn't think there's any foul play. He said he's checked into each one, but next year, because they have to pay a year later.
Correct.
He said next year he'll be able to, and he said what this whole thing has done is brought out exactly how big the caverns are. So now as an assessor, he knows what he should be getting as far as taxes. So if there is a good thing that happened, it gave public officials a chance to know exactly what's under their ground.
Right. And that's, we don't want to throw any blame on any of the companies in that area. They're good companies. They give good employment to the people of that area and people from the surrounding areas. And they've been good corporate citizens. And it's like any other incident that happens. Let's just let the truth come out as to what is going on. And then, like anyone teaches you, take responsibility for your actions. That's it.
Yeah,
it's not to lay blame. It's not to point fingers. It's not to make accusations or start rumors. But just tell the truth and let people know what's going on. Because, That's all these people want. They're not getting the information that you or I would want, being out of our homes for over 2 months now, and trying to determine what am I going to do for the future. There are a lot of sleepless nights with the families that are out there, and we've got to help them get to the bottom of this and get some answers for them.
I know you brought some visuals that Jason's going to pull up,
Yes.
and maybe go into some of that, because I really want to educate. It's funny because I was in Lauraville this weekend, and a lady came up to me and asked me how much we were covering the sinkhole. I said, well, we've covered it since its inception. As a matter of fact, I think we were the first crew to show the gas bubbling up, and that there was even a problem that came with it. But I think aside from maybe, I'm not sure, maybe you've read, I think the Advocate's been on it quite a bit. But other than that, it seems like this should be getting a lot more attention. Do you think that?
Absolutely, because we are not the only state that has caverns, and we're not the only community in this state that has caverns. And again, it goes back to, where are we living? What are we building our homes over? What is the potential exposure? Those are the things that we have to have the information up front and give to people, and allow them to make an informed decision as to where to build a home, or even live, or even how to protect themselves in the event something should happen. It's just good community relations with the people who have these companies, and it's one that gives us all the sense of responsibility to know what to do.
Well, I think it boils down to, me and you have talked about this several times, one word: honesty.
That's it.
If somebody is going to build if you know a realtor or somebody's interested in developing a subdivision, a developer starts developing homes and wants to put 150 or 200 homes in a subdivision, and you're sitting there seeing that and reading about it in the paper, and you know that there is a cavern underneath, and there may be problems.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they knew there were problems at that time when the developer did it, but I'm saying, if you know they are a potential problem, why not call the developer up, go have lunch with them and say, here's your area underneath the ground, and just lay it out on the table. But it seems to me that a lot of people who own homes in that subdivision hadn't a clue what was going on behind.
No, they did not. And unfortunately, this is the type of property that has a real value and appreciation in the future, because it's waterfront. Very limited areas of our state are actually waterfront, that the property values just increase year after year after year. I'm fortunate to have a second home. I'd call it a camp, but it's become almost a home now, in the same area. And it's a retirement for us. It's the same as many of the people who live in that one subdivision that's closest to the sinkhole did this in order to retire to that. And I'll give you one example of it, and this is where it kind of clarifies what is known and not known. There's a gentleman who was the Assistant Secretary of DNR to Scott Angel. Now, there is a separation between the Secretary of DNR and the Conservation Commissioner who works for DNR. And it's a firewall. It's a statute that says he cannot release information on issues like this until after the fact, until after the evidence is brought forward.
It keeps the politics out.
That's correct. In other words, what they did this for is to make sure that the DNR secretary would not influence state government in doing what they should do to protect the people if he was in bed with the companies that are involved. So it's a good law. But his assistant secretary left the department about close to 2 years ago, and that gentleman went out and bought a home for his retirement. He wanted to be on the water. He is the closest house to the sinkhole. And why I'm saying that is that if they would have known, if DNR would have known this was going on, I certainly don't believe that this gentleman would have expended the money that he has spent on a very beautiful home right next to the sinkhole. It's time for us to really get our house in order, to get DNR and the appropriate agencies to have the information available, to put that information out there where people can look at it and where the real estate companies or the land developers understand what they're doing, and then assess it based on that, because then the assessor should be involved in it and look at it and give it true assessment value. Because
so the DNR, no?
DNR wasn't aware of this until it was brought out by the letter that they found in the files of the Office of Conservation. That apparently Texas Brine had sent them a letter sometime back that they thought there was a breach and a mechanical failure in the cavern. That is one of the things we're looking into right now to see if they followed up with inspections and the things that should have been done in order to avert this, if potentially could avert it. But it's certainly to tell the people of the area, we have a problem, we're going to make you aware of it. And this was many, many months before the incident started happening of the bubbling in the canal.
Right. Should have let them know way before the
Absolutely. If it was there, it's our duty, it's our fiduciary responsibility to be able to make our people aware of what's going on.
Hold that thought. State Representative Joe Harrison with us. We're talking about a lot of issues. We'll continue on the sinkhole. Then we're going to jump to appropriations right after that. Don't go away. And welcome back. We're with State Representative Joe Harrison, and we are talking about the sinkhole. It's just become known as the sinkhole. You don't have to ask people where it is. Everybody knows it's Assumption Parish, and Bayou Corne is pretty much ground zero for that. And Joe, just to continue our discussion on it, we were talking about separation between the environmental side of DNR and, say, like Scott Angel, because we don't want politics to get influenced by this. So Scott Angel's out, and he's clean, and he had no knowledge from what everybody knows. But then you go into the environmental side, and I've heard you say many times and mention a guy named Jim Welch, who is in control of anything on the environmental side, which is above or below ground. And seems to me there's not a clean sketch from where I'm listening to you that can make you determine that you have a lot of faith in this guy.
But at this point, knowing what we know about the situation, there was evidence that things that were acknowledged by his office, and it's the Office of Conservation, and it's under DNR. But again, it goes back to the law. Apparently, they thought at first it was the cause of a pipeline, the bubbling. But the largest areas of concern were not near any of the pipelines. So naturally, in a chain of evidence that you're looking at, you had Dow Chemical down the road, you had things happening. That should have been the first thing looked at. And then it came out several weeks later that a letter was sent to him from Texas Brine. And it's incumbent upon them to take action at that time, which we're going to get to the bottom of in the committee meeting. We'll ask those questions, and the people of the area can ask that question.
What did the letter say, or can you disclose?
I'm going to have a letter sent to you. I didn't have it with me because I hadn't received the actual letter. I was getting this from the employees there, that the Texas Brine people had notified them that they had a breach and that they had a mechanical failure. Well, we want to know what was the timeline and what happened from the notification to the date of occurrence.
Okay.
Those are the issues that we have to find out what was going on. So, again, let's just find out what the truth is and deal with it appropriately.
So all the bubbling that we filmed, and I know we were working with Fox 8 out of New Orleans on this story, but we sent crews out there, and it was bubbling up, and people were talking, and they didn't quite know what it was. Nobody knew exactly how to pinpoint it. At that point in time, and I know you brought this up in a previous meeting, did Mr. Welch know what was going on and just didn't say anything?
I think that they were trying to cover all of the potential areas of concern. Whether he knew or not, I do not know that, nor do I want to speculate whether he did. I think that it is pretty obvious from the companies, the pipeline companies. They have some very sophisticated technology. if they were losing pressure at the amount of bubbles that were coming out, which would have to be caused by a tremendous amount of pressure, they would know at their home office. That's how high-tech these companies are today. And they indicated that it wasn't them, although we mandated, apparently, through that Office of Conservation, that they check and run their lines. That cost each one of the companies that were involved over $500,000 each to do that. I am concerned about why we did that without looking at other areas first, and then trying to find a common denominator of where the problem was and go to that direction.
So the shotgun approach was being used, and the innocent had to come up with $500,000 each to say it wasn't them.
That's pretty much what happened, and what I've been told by the pipeline companies. And they're a little upset about it. That, you know, they want to protect the safety of the people of our area. When we had the big meeting in Pier Park, it was brought out about the pipelines that we did have and the potential danger of the pipelines. One scientist from LSU indicated that one pipeline, which was a 36-inch pipeline, was kinked on both sides. It was amazing to me that it did not break, and said if it would have actually broken at that time that the sinkhole started, it could have taken out over 2 miles of area. That's a scary thought.
Well, I know you brought some visuals, and I think Jason's,
yes.
I want to get into this, educate the public a little more, and let you explain exactly where we're at now with this disaster.
Well, this is actually an early one, and this goes back to the 25th of October. As it says, looking north, it's about 600 foot wide. It's actually a little bigger than that, but that's the area of markings to where they feel that they have potential of losing more ground. And if we go to the second slide, which is the follow-up slide on that shows the depth, and we'll bring that up next. Here's the depth. If you're looking from that on a side view, it's 440 foot deep. This is October 4th data. Now, they're still running a number of tests, and there are a number of agencies that are involved. We have EPA, DEQ. There's about 10 or 12 different agencies, both from universities are out there with their people who are experts in this field and assisting all that they can. So we got a lot of people on site that are trying to make some determinations and give them the actual data that they have, and try to put that data together to come up with a view of what we could potentially be looking at, not just today, but in the future. And when I say the future, this is something that could go on for many, many years. And that's what we need in information to give to the people that are there and to the local officials on how to accommodate the needs of protecting the public from it, and also understanding what could potentially happen in the event that this thing goes any further than it has at this point.
And here we have another slide. John, I'll let you pick
This
it
is a
up.
very technical slide that shows the conceptual model and how it subsided and collapsed in hydrocarbon release, which there's an aquifer that's at the top level that you'll see that we've had gas that has been trapped in there and runs in that aquifer, or the water that runs under the surface. They have come back and put a number of vent wells that Natural Resources and DEQ mandated to try to flare out some of the gas that's trapped underground, because it goes in many, many directions, and it is something that we need to get a hold of, because that is probably the most dangerous position that we have right now.
They're trying to make it vertical, get the gas
Absolutely.
vertical. Okay.
And they've done a good job at it. They've been on top of that. Our state agencies are very keen as...
Now, they had some problem. I think water was blocking it, but they got that under control,
yes,
right?
They have that under control. We have some top-notch people that are out there right now that the state actually went out on a limb and DNR, and Steve Schultz, who I give a lot of credit to. He's the guy that took Scott Angel's place, and Steve has not hesitated, not one time, of calling in every expert that we could potentially need to be able to help us solve this situation. You'll see the depth of the salt dome, and it's substantial. They have readings all the way down. If you look at the gas crude on the left side of the page, that goes down to 7,000 feet. We have the cavern at the top. You'll see at the very top where it shows that 600-foot wide sinkhole and a depth of 440 feet. But the potential of it is substantial. The width.
So it can go a lot further.
Yes, and that's the concern. What exactly can we expect? The experts will be coming out with that on the meeting that's going to be held at the end of this month on the 25th. We should have just about everything we need from what is seeping into the cavern right now, which they haven't been able to truly identify. It's a liquid substance that's filling into the cavern. Where did it come from? They actually do DNA on that to determine where it may have come from and be able to give us an approximate situation of how it got into the cavern. What's
the closest? Again, the closest home to the sinkhole is how far away?
It's probably about 1,600 feet at this point.
That's not far.
No, it's not.
I wouldn't want to be in that house, for sure.
No, and that's actually the gentleman that I spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
That's his home.
Wow, that's unbelievable. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We have any more slides?
No, I think that's it. But getting the public to know that the meeting on the 9th, which was this Friday, has been canceled, and that we're going to have a meeting on the 25th, which is just for the sinkhole. We're not going to have any other meetings involved or any other items, involved in that meeting. And the public will have the ability to ask questions and try to get some answers to this.
Let me ask you a question, then we'll take a break because I want to jump to appropriations. But are you convinced, and one thing I know about Joe Harrison, he'll tell me the truth, so you always have been up front, are the people being leveled with up to this point before the meeting? You think you've got about all the information that you'll need to get out, or do you think there's still hiding some underneath the carpet?
There's still a lot of information that has to come out.
Okay.
A lot.
And so I'm sure y'all are digging furiously to...
Yes, we are.
And I'm sure you probably know some things, but you don't have it factually intact yet.
No.
So you can't
I don't
jump
want to misspeak or start any rumors or make accusations. That's not what my job is. I have to give them factual information. I bring it with me so that it can be verified, and that's all I'll ever do.
Okay. And so the meeting, once again, is what day?
That's the 25th of November.
Okay. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump to appropriations. As you know, State Representative Joe Harrison was a member of appropriations, and I want, in his own words, to tell you what he told me on why he is no longer a member of appropriations. If you think politics is just on a national level, think again. It's alive and well on the statewide and local levels. When we come back, you'll hear the story. Don't go away.